Welcome. Okay, so welcome to a video about sugar. So sugar is perceived as public enemy 1, 2, or 3. I don't know, depending on where you're from in the world. But something that we all typically, in the first world and across the world, we eat too much of. Sarah Wilson's an amazing New York Times best-selling author about sugar. Super cool human.
Her book was called I Quit Sugar, and Sarah's going to talk to us about sugar.
Yeah, I think...
Pretty vague intro, Sarah.
That's right. Let's narrow it down a little bit. I suppose one of the things I get asked all the time is what happens to your body when you quit sugar, because it's got to be sold in, because it's not something people want to do. If I said, you've got to quit broccoli, that would be no problem at all for most people, right? But sugar is something we're so attached to. So one of the things that I
love sugar. I love chocolate.
I've noticed.
Yeah, I love a bit of cake. Yeah.
And even, we were talking about this morning. It doesn't matter what sugar it is, it's problematic. So look, one of the things that you kind of notice when you first quit sugar, and I put together an 8-week program that went around the world, and 1.5 million people have done the program.
Wow.
And one of the first things that happens, and it happens within 2 weeks, is that your skin changes. So sugar is more aging than the sun. True story. So it actually causes more problems with collagen and elastin. And if you quit sugar, within 2 weeks, you notice a really discernible difference, which is fantastic because it's a hard thing to do. The gnarly kind of detox stuff kicks in around about week 4. So if you're starting to notice that your skin's better, the wrinkles and pimples disappear, your vanity will keep you going.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it actually is a really convenient fit. So that's one of the first things that happens, which is a really good incentive.
And so when you mean quitting sugar, just to clarify things, does that include fruit?
Good one.
Does that include
when we're talking sugar,
sugars?
We're talking fructose. So everyday table sugar and high fructose corn syrup, which is what most people in the US eat, it's 50% glucose, 50% fructose. Glucose is great stuff. It's in vegetables, it's in all our grains. We need it, we process it in our cells, and we use it as energy. With fructose, it's predominantly metabolized by our liver, like alcohol and toxins. And so our liver gets overburdened by it all. And when it gets overburdened and we eat more sugar than we're meant to, which is around about 6 to 9 teaspoons of added sugar a day. The WHO now agrees with this prescription. If you eat more than that, your liver just goes into overload and dumps the sugar around your visceral, as visceral fat around your organs.
Wow.
Very much like alcohol. So beer gut or beer belly is the same as sugar belly. So you carry it here and here. It's the most dangerous part of your body to carry that kind of fat, right? And it's the hardest to lose. Everybody knows to lose a beer belly or a muffin top or this kind of fat around here is the hard.
I like that.
So you've not heard that one?
No.
It must be an Australian thing. Yeah. So that's the problem with sugar, is that it actually, and it's the problem with fructose. So to answer your question, fruit sounds like it's got lots of fructose. It has a fair bit, but if you're eating whole fruit, you have enough fibre and water in there to actually stop you from eating too much of it. So, but fruit juice, on the other hand, is highly problematic. I don't touch the stuff. And the WHO now declares it an added sugar. And like a glass of Coke and a glass of apple juice contains the same amount of sugar. And people say to me, oh, but that's natural sugar. And I'm like, but sugar cane's natural. Like, where do you draw the line? Our body doesn't care. Once fructose is in our system, we don't care if it was pressed between the knees of a monk in the Himalayas, right? Like, our body doesn't care. It's fructose. It's a
sugar.
molecule.
Yes.
And so fruit is okay. So like simple sugar. What about grains and carbohydrates?
Fine.
And
I don't get into all of that.
Okay, cool. So it's really, as I'd imagine, it's simple sugars, processed sugars.
Don't binge on chickpeas. Do you know what I mean? It's not addictive. And of course, it does break down into sugar eventually, but in a way that our body can handle. So it's not just about all sugar's evil. It's about the way we're metabolizing it. So, and you just got to understand that subtlety, And sugar's not necessarily bad if it's in the small quantities. The problem is there's so much now.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, and kids, for instance, and parents, if you're listening at home or watching at home, kids should have no more than 3 teaspoons of added sugar a day. Now, like I said, a glass of juice, 8 to 9 teaspoons of added sugar. And it's considered added sugar, and we metabolize it as we would Coke. Yeah, it's really something to think about.
3 teaspoons is very little for kids.
Yeah.
And like kids are, like I see my own kids and they're just so, like it's like heroin addicts.
You guys, like being parents, so hard to keep kids away from sugar.
Discipline.
But anyway, that's a whole nother
But okay, so
video.
back to, can I ask one question?
Yeah. Fight for it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go. So what would your? I think you mentioned you have 5 tips for like how to reduce your sugar intake or how to be more disciplined on this. Yeah, to get started. What would your tips be?
All right,
for anyone watching at home.
The easiest one would be to not drink liquid sugar. So that's the best thing. You're going to cut out huge amounts of sugar.
So no sugary drinks, no
sugary
fruit
drinks,
juices.
no fruit juice.
What about kombuchas?
Kombucha's got very little residual sugar, and it's the same with, say, for instance, red wine. The sugar is what ferments to become the fermented substance. So there's kombuchas and there's kombuchas. Some have a lot of residual sugar and some don't. And you can look on the label. And that's another chapter of my book on how to read a label. So liquid sugar, the worst one, because it's fast and furious. It goes to it is turning into visceral fat before you put your glass down. Wow. Whereas if you're eating your sugar with fibre and so on, it's a slower burn, and so you've got a better chance of metabolizing it.
But then there's very little fibre in most of the foods that contain sugar. There's pretty much no fibre in them anyway.
Exactly. So the other one...
First one is cut out fruit juice. Point number 1.
Not fruit juice.
Cut out
Don't drink your
liquid sugars.
No liquid sugar. The second thing is to avoid low-fat products, in particular low-fat dairy and so on. And the reason for that is when manufacturers pull the fat out of a product, they've got to put something back in
to make it taste all right,
and they put sugar back in. Okay. So pig farmers around the country, if they want to fatten up their pigs, they go and get refuse low-fat milk. Not the full fat. The low-fat milk will fatten up their pigs best and fastest. So keep that in mind. Remember the pigs when you...
Now, a lot of our audience is vegan, so that might be relevant to everyone.
No, but what I would also say on that front is fat satiates. And so one of the tricks that I have, and a lot of vegans do my I Quit Sugar program, and I have a lot of vegan recipes and I cater to vegans very heavily. When you don't eat enough fat, you're not satiated. And this is how I describe it. So when you eat good quality protein and fat, it's like putting a log on your metabolic fire, right? It will burn nice and slowly for a couple of hours. You'll have nice, even energy. It starts to die out and you hit lunchtime and you eat another log, right? Now, when you're eating sugary foods and, really cheap carbohydrate foods, it's like putting Kero or kindling on a fire.
Putting lighter fluid on.
Yeah, firelight. That's right. And so you'll have energy.
It's a good analogy.
But you've got to spend your life tending that fire. Do you know what I mean? And so you go on a roller coaster, and that's what your moods do when you're on sugar. So when you eat fat and protein, you're essentially evening out your energy, and then you won't go running for sugar so easily. So avoid low-fat products for a whole range of reasons. You're mucking with Mother Nature apart from anything else. The third thing I would say, it's an easy one. If you avoid anything in a packet, then you're sort of sorted. So 80 to 90% of food in a supermarket in a packet has added sugar. Wow. So if you just go, oh, look, I know it's in a packet and I know it says it's gluten-free and it's this and that, I know that it's going to have added sugar, I'm going to go for the apple or I'm going to go for something. And the less ingredients, the better if you are buying sort of packaged foods.
That's hard.
Or your products, because I know that, they're pretty good.
They're pretty good.
They come with a good tip.
So point number 3 is to try to avoid processed foods, really.
And packaged.
That's right.
Packaged. You like packaged
it's a really
foods,
good shortcut to cutting out sugar. Fourth thing I would say is if your grandmother can't recognise the ingredients, then it's probably best to avoid. So say if you're at a food court, I know a lot of people have to resort to that kind of eating, or if you're at a restaurant or a pub or whatever it might be, a diner, if you're in the US, avoid things where there's gooby sauces. You know what I mean? Like it's
sugary-looking sauces.
And you're like, I don't know.
And they sit out there all day for,
That's right. So sauces contain heaps and heaps of sugar. And even right down to barbecue sauce and ketchup and so on, they're about 50% sugar.
Wow.
Yeah, so the final one...
Not surprising why we love them.
Yeah, exactly.
We as humans.
Exactly. Yeah. And kids dump tomato sauce on their chips and parents think, oh, it's a vegetable. Yeah. Well, in fact, it's, it's pretty much sugary flavoured tomatoes.
Red stuff.
Yeah. And I guess the final thing would be don't be fooled by refined sugar-free. And, you guys know the deal. Everywhere you go into the health food aisle of a supermarket or, whatever, and everybody says, oh, refined sugar-free. And you look at the packet and you read down the thing and it's 50%, 60% sugar. It's got more sugar than a Mars bar. Yeah. So don't be fooled by that because once again, like I said before, sugar is sugar. Fructose in our system is fructose. It doesn't care where it comes from. And I think there's a lot of kind of health washing that's happening where people...
Definitely.
people are buying all these snack foods to think that they're being sort of healthy. And you know that whole idea of eating 6-7 times a day, you know, snack throughout the day, it's really problematic. It was only invented in the 1990s by nutritionists and dietitians because they had all these clients coming in who had sugar addictions, were going like this, couldn't get from breakfast to lunch, had to snack in between because they were on a sugar roller coaster. They said, snack. But of course, snack foods are full of sugar. So we've just perpetuated the issue. So I would say just be really wary when it says refined sugar-free, because whether it's honey or maple syrup, and we were saying this earlier, it's the same stuff. And the thing is with maple syrup, for instance, and I know a big part of your audience is from the States and you love your maple syrup, you don't just put a teaspoon of maple syrup on pancakes, you put half a cup. Right?
Absolutely. And it's swimming and it looks great on the dribbly bits.
And it's the same. I mean, you just wouldn't put that much sugar on anything. We've got to remember this, it's all the same stuff.
It flows quicker. Brilliant. Okay, so just to summarize from my understanding is, okay, to give up sugar, it's really good for my skin and it's really good for my body and my energy levels. And basically to summarize how to cut it out is just eat things out of eat fruit and vegetables and other things that are not in packets. And that would be
don't drink your sugar.
But if you just focus on
eat real food. End of the story.
There we go.
Thank you for watching. Do check out Sarah. You'll find her
Instagram, YouTube, Facebook.
I think she's amazing. She's writing an amazing book now. Another one on
getting people to wake up.
There you are.
Sarah Wilson from Australia. I Quit Sugar. Loads of cool stuff, and leave us comments down below.
Cheers. Bye.